Thanks a lot. Thank you, George. Now we're on to a very exciting panel. So I guess this is the first time we actually mentioned this term today, NFTs. And I'm very excited about the absolutely all-star lineup for this panel. I would like to introduce a moderator for this panel, Elias Ahonen, who is a very well-known blockchain author and also a Cointelegraph columnist, and he has his own book, as far as I know. Elias, please welcome.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Mic test. Is this working? Yeah? Good? Okay. So I'm Elias Ahonen, and it's a pleasure to be here. Okay, thought so. Sorry about that, guys. So Elias Ahonen, happy to be stepping in for Pedro here. And so this panel obviously is on the NFTization of artists and companies, whether collectibles or marketing strategies. I have a pretty long history in the NFT space, and you could say the blockchain space generally. This is my 10th year, and I just recently did a master's in law on NFTs and the metaverse and what all that means. So I want to keep this conversation going and invite some experts in the arts and in business and in marketing to discuss this NFT phenomena, and we'll go from there. Thanks. Let's go. Maybe VESA and Arvin, and you can all come up. So I think what we'll do is we'll just start off with a general introduction. I give a very quick one myself. We can start off with Susan here. Maybe a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what you do, why you're passionate about this stuff.
Hi, my name is Susan O. I was a business journalist for 25 years with the Economist Intelligence Unit, Newsweek, and CNBC before I started working with tech startups, first in Silicon Valley, and between Silicon Valley and in New York. And then I discovered blockchain tools through a woman I met in the women's bathroom at Web Summit in Austin in 2017, and started looking at building. I had actually built a model to crowdsource the tagging and labeling of data to stake data provenance and integrity back starting from 2017. And that led me to a lot of my community work to help launch a nonprofit and NGO called Blockchain Commission for Sustainable Development that was incubated with the support of the Office of Partnerships at the UN General Assembly. So I'm very excited and hopeful about intelligent decentralization and about building trustless systems whereby any and all who choose to adapt and do the work and participate can partake and share in the value in the systems that they help create, or we all help create.
Thank you.
Checking. Okay, great. Hi, everyone. I'm Ipshita, co-founder at Lemonade, which is essentially a multi-chain platform for creators to host token-gated events with IRL utilities. I'm also heading the entire NFT marketing division for Hype Partners, which is one of the largest Web3 marketing and advertising agencies. In my free time, I like to dedicate more time within DAOs, so I'm also the India chapter lead for All Stars Women NFT DAO. So essentially what we do is provide a platform for more South Asian women and more opportunities for them within the Web3 space through knowledge, education, investment, mentoring. So yeah, that's where I'm from.
Hey everyone, my name is VESA. I've been a digital artist since 2008, which was a little bit of a problem trying to fit into the normal realm of the art world, because everyone was always asking me about the oil original or the acrylic original, and I had to say that mine is really a digital file. So that was a little bit of a monetization problem. So because of this and a couple of other things, getting to know how the monetary system works and those kinds of things pretty early on, when I heard about the crypto art movement, essentially because there wasn't one, and how important Bitcoin was, then among likely the first 2 or 3 artists, we came in to generate the whole movement of crypto art, and then that bled into NFTs very early on in 2018. So I kind of was at the beginning of this whole thing for a bunch of reasons, and it's a pleasure to be here amongst friends. It's so nice to be back in Dubai and in this positive atmosphere of everyone building and finding the sinks to kind of do this thing together. So that's who I am, and that's what I'm doing here.
Perfect. So my name is Arvin Khamseh. I've been in crypto since 2016. I got into NFTs in 2021. My background is investor relationship marketing with public companies. I was managing 500K a month advertising and spending, just a lot of display ads, programmatic ads. And then I sold out a one-of-one collection for an artist from Italy. And then that got me into NFTs. And then since then, I consulted 400 plus NFT projects. So I'm also someone who's seen a lot of projects, looking forward to doing the discussion with everyone else.
Thank you, Arvin. So I think one of the big questions is how do we move from a Web 2 or a non-NFT art or business into an NFT? And I think VESA might be perfect to answer that, because you just described this, having a digital art in a time of physical art, and people were expecting paintings, but you were trying to do something else, and then you made this jump. And maybe you want to talk about that, and others want to add on to that.
I'm so sorry, I missed the beginning part.
Sorry,
of the question.
so this question of how do we move from the old physical world into the digital world, and how NFTs play a part?
Yeah, I suppose it doesn't really matter whether you're doing it from the, let's say, an oil original that you can maybe repaint a little bit in layers, or scan and then someone animates it and then it becomes a digital product. And let's say, because for me what's so exciting about this whole thing is that we tend to think that a painting is really something that is on a wall, it's in a frame, and it lives there, and sometimes you occasionally glance at it if it's not only just a status symbol or something like that in your lives. What it's really doing is that it's escaping out of the frame and becoming a part of your identity in a way that we package them, so that it can be a part of your life in your car, as the outside of the car, or it can be your couch, it can be something that lives in a way that even if you scan the artwork with your mobile phone on your wall, it becomes alive, it becomes a different version of the artwork of what it was. And we get to enhance and beautify our lives and our sort of identities in a different way, not only in the physical, but now all the different things that we're building in the metaverse, and how those things that are very apparent here in Dubai. You have the fancy cars and the fancy houses and all the different kinds of flexes that people do. It's a burden and a blessing that we also get to do that stuff in the digital now. That a lot of the kids these days, they care more about their Instagram appearance than they do about what their sneakers look like in the real world. So there's these transitionings and focus points of what people have, and we get to select how we present ourselves to the world and what we're really into, and how to build these sort of digital fortresses for ourselves as well as the physical ones. So it doesn't really matter from which way you come into this whole ecosystem, just so you know that there's a lot of different kinds of ways of how you can make the transfer so that you have both of those covered.
Thank you. How does that, maybe someone else wants to answer this, how does it play into marketing that you have these NFTs and you have this fact that kids care more about Instagram than their physical sneakers? How does that change?
Okay, so I don't want to make a broad generalization, but I just came from Stanford University's, Science of Blockchain conference, and I met phenomenal, mind-blowing 15 to 17-year-olds that care about the environment, that think nothing about gender inequality because they see us as equals. And so Gen X, Gen Z, I don't even know what alphabet letter that we're on towards the end of the alphabet, but they're, it's really hard to do a ham-fisted broad stroke of a whole generation, but I find that the younger generations really do give a shit. And they're very adaptable and malleable, and they're digital native. These guys are popping out apps and video games like I would, like curse over Excel spreadsheets and programming my own classifiers. I wouldn't advise people do that. But so I have a great deal of hope for that. But to answer your questions about how bridging the digital to the real world, if you think of NFTs as like the tofu, a digital tofu. NFTs are simply everything and nothing. It is the most robust and flexible, programmable digital asset. And what is amazing about it is that not only is it Web3 ready, easily plug-inable in different environments, but it's so robust and flexible you can have anywhere from 40 to 150 protocols running in it. And what that means is that that NFT, that is the skin and container of it, can visually, by data and by code, represent what your value proposition is. Now think about it, your value proposition. If you're saying Nikes are really super comfortable, right? Or the rainforest is worth preserving because of the biodiversity, each of those colors can be a visual representation of what you mean as what you're valuing. The movement of that data to show the health of the health of that ecosystem, or the bounce of the shoe, or the resilience can be reflected as a color or a set of wings. You are representing data visually to express and to simulate and experiment with your value proposition. And you can tie that into the real world.
There were a couple fairly complex ideas there, but if I may summarize, just so I understand, what you're saying is that NFTs can be, they're these things, they're these pieces, game pieces in the blockchain that don't mean anything, they don't stand for anything except what we assign to them, and they can effectively assign and stand for anything. Just like, matter. If you have atoms, they're nothing, but you can make anything out of them, and we can make them symbolize anything. Is that correct?
Yeah, and you can visualize data in real time, and it's based on really real. You can see a forest morph and grow based on the biodiversity and the carbon sequestration. You can have a commercial that ran just at the Super Bowl, where at the end of it, that brand flashed a QR code, and everyone that flashed that QR code for 10 to 12 seconds as proof of participation that you cannot fake got airdropped NFTs and vouchers for product. So you can make it represent anything, but it's staked by data, and it's visually represented and can morph before your eyes to reflect real world things.
What's our take on, traditional companies that, let's say McDonald's or Burger King taking on NFTs? Do you think that's a valid marketing strategy?
I'd love to.
Yeah,
go for it. No, go for it.
I'd love to add on to that. I think what we need to first understand is, as time is moving forward and we are adopting digital technology more, increasingly, our social spheres have become more digital. So we're spending way more time online, whether it's myself, my mother, my brother, or the future child is going to come. So basically all of us are spending way more time online. And what traditional brands are looking at, when they're looking at this space, they're thinking, okay, maybe you know what Gucci is, I know what McDonald's is, but the next generation, they're not going to know what these brands exist or what they do or what they stand for if we're not hanging out in this generation's place. Where is this generation hanging out? Online. So I want to be more present there. I want to get into their eyeballs, and I want to make sure that I'm able to capture as much digital real estate as possible. So yes, there is a dramatic shift where a lot of heritage and traditional brands are looking at it thinking, we want to get a piece of that pie, but that's solely because if they don't, they'll just lose relevance to the next generation. And that's pretty risky.
Yeah, so I would just add, I would first of all echo that it is, so the point is being relevant. Projects and companies, they want to stay relevant, and that's not just, large companies, even small companies now thinking about what they need to do so they stay relevant. However, if you think about it, majority of people, so about 5% of population know about cryptocurrencies to begin with, and then NFT is a very small, very, very small population of that 5%. And so just for a reference, it's about 500,000 active wallets right now. And so there are not a lot of people to begin with, but we will have a lot of people. And so that's what companies are preparing for. And you saw which company? Tiffany & Co. They came up with their NFTs, 30 ETH, shocked the market, and they did a really cool partnership with a project that was already very popular in the Web3 format. So they want to stay relevant. They want to grow in a sense that they are, they're also taking care of those people who are into specific, they have a specific interest, i.e. the Web3 and NFTs. But that's only because they care about the communities right now. Now down the line, it will also be because they want to make a lot of money from it too. So far, a lot of artists tried it out. Even for example, if you think about Jack Dorsey's Twitter screenshot that was bought initially for millions of dollars, and then that they put it on sale, it was only going for 6 figures. Eminem came up with an artwork, and it was just a one-of-one, and then not many people actually wanting to buy it. So we're still not at that place where everything is mainstream, but these companies, they're trying to grow to whatever, Gen Z, Gen X, whatever they can, and stay relevant, and then also build the infrastructure for later on to do a lot of other things, launch their products and so on and so forth.
So what I'm seeing from this is that there's kind of two camps or two strands in, you could say industrial adoption, if we can use that term. One of them is kind of this theoretical prospective one where, we think that there's not many users in the blockchain and in the metaverse now, but we think there might be in the future, so we kind of have to invest and go in here and mark out our territory so that, all the other brands don't beat us in case this happens eventually. And that might be kind of a loss leader. That might not actually be a profitable venture in the beginning. The other strand that you kind of described is that artists might be trying to take this metaverse and make it part of their identities, like Eminem with Bored Ape Yacht Club, and trying to kind of say hey, I'm in the metaverse, I'm cool, and I'm a leader in that sense. Would you agree that there's kind of these two, or are there more pillars as well?
I could if I need to backtrack a little bit in order to get to the point, I suppose, is if you look at my picture here on the wall, I made a logo for myself, and for a good reason, I kind of embedded it into the picture that is here in one way, because art is this very miasmic and difficult thing to kind of do, and people don't trust their eyes. We don't really have a very holistic good education program for the arts for the public at large to begin with, and then there's a lot of different kind of games being played that are not about art. So what people have come to realize is that they trust brands. They trust that Bored Ape Yacht Club is a brand, Eminem is a brand. So all of a sudden you get some sort of a footholding where you start to feel comfortable enough to kind of come into it, that you're not going to be judged that for your abysmal taste or something that is completely out of order and you put too much money into something and so forth. And that can still happen, of course, and it happens all the time. Because, maybe if I ask the audience, how many here think that a receipt is a good idea? That before there were receipts, now there are receipts. Do you think that's a good idea that we have receipts now? Anyone? Anyone think a receipt is a good idea? You, sir? Okay, I thought it was a little bit more. But let's say that I say 100% that a receipt is a good idea. And NFTs were sold on this hype and marketing train that a lot of people made a lot of money out of it. But essentially, if you want to know what an NFT is, which is confusing to many people, it's a smart receipt. It's an evolution of a receipt that we needed for something that we've had digital products now for decades and decades, and we had a problem that we don't have a receipt for it. Now we have a receipt. Hooray. But that's really the whole thing. It is important, but it's not worth all the hype and how people sort of packaged it together to make it this sort of miasmic thing. No, it's a very simple thing. It's a very necessary thing. And artists like myself, it helps with the branding, with the different products. It helps for us to find the common trust to have this trade with one another. But hopefully soon the hype out of NFTs, which is probably now already done, let's be fair, because all of the marketing kind of shenanigans have been played out to the end, to the max now. So now we get to focus on the receipt and what that receipt can do, and then we can sort of have a better life.
Well, I mean, I think you're talking about, I totally get what you're saying. I mean, the days of like pricey pixels based on like exclusive parties, like those heydays are gone, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but as a marketer, when I look at campaigns that have been successful, stuff that worked like 3 months ago, there's no way it's going to work now, right? Because like that's been tried and the novelty is gone and it's been tested out. Would you agree? And so then it comes back to, I agree with you that it's a receipt, but there's also a sense of promise.
Smart receipt.
It has to be a smart receipt, but it has a sense of promise, as in that it must have utility. And so what do we mean by utility? As you were saying before, it has to connect from the digital and hopefully from Web 2, because Web 2 needs a Web 3, and Web 3 needs to come off of Web 2. They're not necessarily competing and mutually exclusive. They're symbiotic in different expressions, just like different social media tools are different senses of urgencies and different messaging. Does that, And so when we look at utility with NFTs, you're right, it is definitely a receipt, a smart receipt, but it's also a promise. It's also a promise of a hyper-real experience of each other and of those brands that you hadn't imagined that might be too risky, too costly, or too geographically spread for me to test out in any other than a 3D web environment and to test out my suppositions. And I think the next big wave is when we look at everyday mundane things that all of us may or may not like to do, like go up to the bar and get a drink at a crowded nightclub. No one likes doing that, right? But we have to do that, sometimes, minimally, right? And to be able to imagine that in ways that are more gamified, smoother, faster, and super more entertaining for in the real world as well as in the metaverse.
I think if we take this concept of a receipt, a smart receipt, a promise, into the so-called legal realm, which is more my area, we can basically imagine these NFTs as, again, something similar to a deed of ownership. If you own a house or if you buy a house, you get a deed and it says that, you own this house, and that's registered somewhere in this central registry. And that is, upheld by the government, it's upheld by the, whatever system you have in place. And when it comes to blockchain, let's say if the NFT is on Ethereum, Ethereum becomes the system, and Ethereum is the government and the system of law and everything that comes around that secures and that says that this NFT belongs to this person, right? And when you sell a piece of art or an NFT within Ethereum, it's like going to, we could use a government system like Dubai. It has its own system. If you have an apartment in Dubai and you sell it to someone else in Dubai, that happens through that system, and someone in another country can't necessarily get directly involved. But then that NFT ownership comes from other people recognizing that system of governance, which is that specific blockchain. Would that be accurate?
But can I just return the question? I think this was in a conversation that we had, is that we were talking about a very, very expensive yacht that is a physical yacht and a metaverse yacht. And then what if your MetaMask gets hacked and your $400 million yacht and someone has the token? Are you just going to give out your yacht, or how is that part of the legal thing then handled?
That's a can of worms. So just what VESA is referring to is he's involved in a project where he's looking to, maybe already are, wrapping like $50 million yachts with VESA's own art, which is a huge project, and I'm sure it's perfect for Dubai.
400 million.
Oh, okay. Well, I stand corrected. My apologies. So $500 million yachts, and those are being sold as an NFT of sorts. So the question becomes, is if I buy this $400 million yacht, does that mean I get the yacht? And if I get the yacht, what if my MetaMask gets hacked? Do all my staff just turn on me? Like, that guy, you don't have the private keys anymore. It's like the crown jewels of England being stolen. Like, if you stole the crown, does that make you queen or king?
Yeah, I mean, it actually happens
way more than it should right now. So a lot of projects get hacked. There was one project I was involved with, and first few hours we lost about 600K. And it was just simply because there was no multi-sig wallet. So the developer on board, he just basically redirected all the money to his own wallet. And then, but so it does happen, and then that's lost, and then there's no law right now that would get your yacht back. So you would just not have a yacht anymore.
It's a bad afternoon.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go to a party and someone steals your phone from that party, from your bag, you don't get your phone back, most definitely. So.
No, my wallet was hacked, and straight up, if I knew who was attached to that wallet address, he'd be hearing from me.
So I mean, if you look at blockchain, and this goes deeper into the history of blockchain, which is the subject of my recent book, Blockland, and blockchain and Bitcoin originally was created from this anarchist, anarcho-capitalist perspective by this group called cypherpunks, and they believed that you could effectively replace the whole system of human governance, which is fallible because we're human, with code, which would act more like this gravity or physics of governance, where there is no human to influence or bribe or to make stupid decisions. And then you could know exactly what's going to happen and have legal certainty in the same way you would have with engineering or biology. And that is very much what and how blockchain functions. If I lose a private key, it's gone. I can't sue someone for the private key to get restored if I lost it by destroying my computer. So that puts this NFT ownership versus your actual right of possession very much in this weird conflict, because it takes this I call it a legal black hole, and it puts it in competition with our system of governance, which is concerned with physical things. And that's a huge problem. I don't think there are answers to that. Some NFT platforms are doing this thing where they're keeping the NFTs within the platform, which you could argue that that's not really a proper NFT, or it's kind of like an intranet instead of an internet. Anyone have any experiences with these solutions of?
So you're basically talking about the chain of custody.
Yeah.
Correct? And having it being universally recognized in terms of ownership and private property. So these are free market principles that are hundreds of years old from the time of industrialization. If you take a 99-year lease, does it belong to you or just the air above the land, right? Who has purview of the land, and what do we buy property for? Right? It's usually for the purview of it, which means the direct access and control of it. Those are really interesting questions, but I do believe that the market answers these questions legally in gray markets and in dark markets. Absolutely, those practices have been ironed out, and that dates pre-Bitcoin or digital assets from the early 2000s. I don't think people realize that digital assets have been around since pre-Bitcoin, and even before that, in terms of distributed computing systems or the backends that we're talking about. So a lot of these things have been discussed, and in a decentralized system, a lot of them depends on the community that you are and the lengths that you'll go to recover your assets. Is that fair?
If I can expand a little bit on the idea, just to confuse everyone, because that's what us artists are here to do. But classically, we have sort of the people who think that the material world is the only world, and then the sort of more miasmic, the ethereal world is the reality, and they're always sort of battling throughout history the different perspectives as what is more real. But let's say from the metaverse perspective, everyone's seen the film Matrix. We're kind of building the Matrix. But on one way, if you take the sort of traditional spiritual kind of way of how you look at this world is Maya. This is the grand illusion of where we are right now, that table isn't a bunch of molecules that is resonating, or that it's solid, but it's really not. So when it comes to like physical art or digital art or any of these kinds of asset classes, I just had this thought this morning that the most expensive luxury item that any human being has is their own identity. Whether you identify as a rich person or a poor person, those are very costly identities for you to have. and whether that kind of identity shifts in different kinds of ways. I think the best thing to do about identity and all of these things of playing the forever cops and robbers in between is that you remember that your identity is not real. There's a perspective that this world is not real, and definitely the metaverse isn't real, but you can have tangible things from there, and if you find a way on how to monetize your identity, that is probably the correct way to go about it while remembering that none of it is real. Was that confusing or clarifying? I don't know.
I think it was on the confusing side for.
No. Identity is at the crux of everything that we're talking about, isn't it? Like, how do you own things or value things if you don't own your own image or your name or your reputation or your content? You know, I mean, CryptoKitties, right, like almost destroyed and ate the Ethereum network. But what it was an early proof of use case for generative NFTs and monetization of those contracts of identity, right?
I think now that we speak about identities and monetizing identities, whether it's of an artist or of a brand or of a company, what has to be in place today? I mean, I know it was crazy in the last couple, year or two, anyone could start an NFT and make millions, but if someone wanted to create an NFT now, what do you have to have in place? Do you have to have a community ready? What kind of community should it be that's going to be receptive to an NFT, or does the community come after you create an NFT? Maybe Arvin has some ideas?
Yeah, so it definitely has changed. So last year, there were projects that we would literally have a website, on the roadmap, we would just say that we're gonna have something to do with the metaverse, maybe have some game, and it was as vague as just how I described it. And people would just go crazy, would buy all the NFTs, Apin, and then we would just sell millions of dollars. But that's not the case anymore. So we've obviously evolved, and people have become more skeptic. Some people are jaded because they've been, rug pulled once or twice. Now, where we're heading right now as far as identity is that we're seeing projects now need to actually deliver on roadmaps and things before the community actually invests on them, or sometimes even they need to actually invest their own money or get VCs to invest in their projects before they can have the permission to ask people to invest in their projects. So that's a very new, movement in how the NFT sales are happening, and that's just because people are more a skeptic in the Web3 industry, and then Web2 people, they come in, they don't know anything about the bear market or like what's happening with the NFTs. They come in, but they still want to make sure the first NFT that they buy in, it's going to be some NFT that's going to be beneficial for them. So again, they're going to look for what's in it for them. And so as far as identity, the projects who can, projects that can actually show that they have a valuable asset that they can sell to people. They have a great team. They're all fully doxed, meaning they reveal their identity. They're backed by VCs. They have a lot of money. And they have that persona of, hey, we're going to be a successful project. That's the type of identity that actually will be successful.
I'd love to echo what Arvin also said. When you think of NFTs, or actually when you think of communities in general, they tend to congregate around interests. So when you are starting a project, it's just so important for you to know what is the purpose? Why are you building it? A lot of times you look at projects, you just don't get it. Like, why are you building this? And they're not able to answer that, but they have a page and a half long of roadmap of things that they want to do, but they can't answer the basic question, why is it that you're building? And this is something that we constantly come across when we speak to clients, when we speak to other projects, is that the first question I would ask the founder, why are you doing this? And if you want to make money out of it, that's fine, but have that answer ready. So once you have the why answered, you're then able to understand what kind of community is going to gravitate towards what I'm building. So a great example I'd love to give, and it's not going to be a Bored Ape or Cool Cats or Doodles. It's going to be it's a project that no one even knows. It's called Female Pleasure Society, FPS, based out of Berlin. The founder, she's very, very passionate about female sexual health and just helping women be more empowered in taking those decisions when it comes to their own sexual health. So she wanted to use the power of PFP collection as well as her community to drive the NFT project. But instead of launching the PFP collection first and then promising them products in return down the line, what she did is created a website, positioned a product saying, if you want to be in the allow list of my PFP project, just go ahead, put in your address, I'm going to ship my products to you. She gave out 3 samples because she was completely confused as to what flavor of that product she wants to go ahead with. She ships it out for free. Doesn't matter which part of the world you are. Once you receive the products, you can taste it, and you post a picture of your favorite flavor on Twitter. And then you get access to the whitelist. And then once you get access to the whitelist, you can then essentially go ahead with minting. And then once you've minted one of the PFPs, you then get access to all the other benefits. So she pretty much reversed the entire Discord grinding mechanism and played it to her favor. So in the end, we tend to forget that community is the epicenter of any Web3 project. It doesn't matter if you're a protocol or an NFT project or a DAO. If your community understands what is it that you're building, you don't need a marketing tool because your community will go out there and market it for you. Just the way right now I feel very passionate about this
So
society.
from what I'm hearing from both of you, it's not about the community. What you both talked about was actually utility and productization.
Purpose.
It has to be, no, productization. Productization is purpose with revenue models and a solid business model behind it.
Yep.
And that is productization. And you cannot have community without product. You can't have an enduring product. Agreed?
Yes. No,
But you need a
It's
purpose to build a product.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
You
now...
need a purpose.
No, you need a problem to solve.
Yeah, so
you need a
and if-
You don't
well-defined problem.
necessarily need a problem to solve, but you just need a purpose.
No, if you don't have a problem to solve, then you don't have market fit. You just have purpose.
Exactly, and that's actually very important because now NFT projects, they're finally treating their NFT projects as a business, as a startup, which is helpful because now they go on Twitter Spaces. I tell a lot of projects, go on Twitter Spaces and spend 100 hours, just pitch your project, get roasted by Web3 people and influencers, and they tell you what they don't like about your product, and maybe no one likes anything about your project, and just like wrap it up, move on to the next one. And maybe they like something specific that you didn't think about, and then you just bring that on and market that. So just that product fit you're talking about.
And the feedback loop of
Right.
the community.
Yeah.
Would you say that an NFT, when you buy an NFT, does that or should it ideally make you this active member of a community? Should it be a call to action of some kind, or should it just be that, okay, I bought it, stop bothering me, I own one of these things now, that's all I want?
If I may, I think there's something that I learned only a few days ago that I think is significant, because I've been looking into what AI is generating for a while, and it hasn't been very much utility for me up until now that I saw this one I think it's a community or a company called Midjourney. And through these, just an artist a while ago they basically wrote a bunch of script and then made a really cool looking artwork that looks really fresh and submitted it to a competition and won first prize amongst artists. And these scripts that you can write on Midjourney, I'm not associated, I'm not promoting it, I'm just saying that this is like the first tool that I see in AI that is going to break what I thought was first through NFTs, that it's going to be the liberation of a whole creative class of people. I had this whole notion. And now I realize that it's much, much bigger than that, because the art world has been something that is quite stagnant for quite some time. And how I thought that NFTs or the metaverse or something was going to break it. But essentially now what's happened is that anyone in this room can have anything that you imagine and juxtapose something like old vintage photo versus futuristic landscape, and you type that down and all of a sudden you have an amazing image in front of you. And you go, wow, am I an artist now? Am I not? Is the real person to be celebrated that who writes the code or those who are typing the words? But that's not the essential thing. What I think is essential is that the human imagination is now going to be blowing all the different kinds of gates apart that we used to have, and all of us get to showcase our internal world through words in a way that you can then make into NFTs. But essentially what that leads to is that most of these things that we now package are going to be not so necessary, and everything is about attention. Everything is about the trusted brand and those kinds of things, because I'm presuming that since I've been building for quite some time, that there are going to be people who trust what I do and a very complicated process that I do. And even if I'm incorporating AI into that, it's going to be slightly different than anyone who hasn't anywhere done art at all now does something. But you will find people who are into that, and you can make your house into that and whatever. But the attention economy is really the whole thing that is screwing up so much for all of us now, but it's also something that is going to be the sort of consistent thread that the companies, the artists, whoever is building the metaverse worlds, all of those, you either hold attention or then you don't have it and you're dead in the water. And whatever you use in order to hold that attention, and hopefully slightly less desperately, as we've been doing it on social media lately, is the real energy. That's the thing. And now we have NFTs to package that and sell it.
Thanks. I think we only have about 2 minutes left, but if any of you have any other ideas or subjects you wanted to bring up that haven't gotten enough airtime here.
Just one thing.
Sure.
You don't always have to look for utility from NFTs. I've owned tons of NFTs that I'm not looking to sell, does not provide any utility, but it holds a very strong emotional value for me. So it's almost wrong that you look at NFTs as, oh my God, what utility am I going to get? Am I going to get a physical merch, or am I going to be invited to this really cool party? Sure, that's a different type of NFT, but there are a lot other types that exist. Like, for example, if I love your artwork, I'm just going to buy it. I don't care if you give me a special access a year later.
Thank God you exist.
So I think it's very important to know that NFTs, sure, they're a technology, they're a tool that enables us to build these beautiful assets, but outside of that, not everything has to be utility focused.
Because the art itself is the utility, given that
Voila.
the actual
But no one's buying them
art
anymore.
is there, as opposed to something that is just
But
called
no one's
art.
buying them anymore. No one's making their raises anymore.
It's the bear market, that's why. But
No, but even with, no one's, like for the last 6 months, no one's been making their raises, like with just pretty
well, yes,
pixels.
sales like on like even on OpenSea has been dropped obviously significantly.
Yeah, and so
right?
without other buyers, you are holding on to the NFT, and it's great that it has emotional resonance for you. I hope you get it on a good floor price. That's all.
And I guess it's
Don't
like
care
with,
about the floor price, really. It's mine. I'm never going to sell it.
I guess it's
That's
like with
awesome, you're
anything. If
privileged.
you have a certain brand that you wear it because you like it or you keep it on your wall. But then if someone comes over and sees that art, you might connect over it, and that this kind of unofficial, unplanned benefit.
Yeah, I agree. I even have like some blue chip collections that I don't even know what they airdrop into my wallet. Like I just opened the ledger the other day and then I was like, oh wow, I have so many more NFTs I didn't even know. And just because I don't have time, but that's, you're talking about utilities, so like I'm not even using the utilities, right?
Oh, no, I mean, I get airdrop stuff all the time.
Yeah, just
but
hold it up.
I have to look at it to make sure it's not a scam, that it's
course,
not
yeah.
some sort of malware that's embedded in a picture.
Yeah. But I guess the point is, it's not, even though I went for the utility, I actually stayed on for the brand.
But altogether, maybe it's a holistic thing. It doesn't have to be this or that. It can be this and that. I think artists should be made to work a lot harder. They shouldn't just be able to, like, now there's energy in astronauts in the metaverse who are looking at Bitcoin logos. I told everyone at the time that, if you make thousands and thousands of these, probably they're not going to hold value very well. But which is what happened. I said it.
If you have,
I think we are out of time. Thank you for the panelists. It was wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Wow, that was a picture. Hold on. You should go back for a picture. Okay. Well, that was a heated discussion, I should say. Thank you, Susan, for making it look like a, NFT utility battle. Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks. I'll see you around. And of course, if anyone has any questions, I'm sure you can access our amazing speakers. That was amazing. Thank you.